Hi friends, we are back with our poetry lesson for today. So yesterday's task was to have this out. Again, you'll need your reader-writer notebook for poetry. And yesterday's task was to complete page 15 and 16. So we read through the poem together. You were asked to reread it one more time by yourself and then complete lesson 9. And on lesson 9, it says to work with a partner or a table group to complete the graphic organizer, but I asked you to work with a friend, someone at home, mom, dad, whoever is at home with you, or you could complete the activity on your own. So again, there is not a right or wrong answer for page 16 because this is how the poem was making you feel. And then what did the author do to make you feel that way? And then I also asked you to complete on page 17 the quick write. Once you are complete with these activities, please make sure you send them to me because we are moving on today. And like I said, this week is our last week of poetry. So we are going to wrap it on up. So make sure you are continuing to turn in anything poetry related. And when you have completed the entire workbook, so the entire poetry workbook, writer notebook is complete, you may turn that notebook into me at the school. Again, it is fourth quarter, friends. I am turning in grades for the fourth quarter now. Keeping track, not turning in. All right, so let's go on to our reading objectives for today. Our first objective here is that I can read closely, and it says in parentheses page 20. We will visit page 20 in just a minute, and it'll make a little more sense to you. And secondly, I can identify and jot down unfamiliar words and define them. So you will be able to do both of these today. All right, so I need you to take out your writer-reader notebook, please, and open up to page 18. On page 18, you will find, we'll label this so we know where we're at. On page 18, you will find a poem. This poem is a close read poem. So we will visit that also in just a minute. If you remember back to our objective for today, is that you will be able to closely read a poem. And this is the poem that you are going to do that with. This poem is titled Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. So if we take a second to turn our page again, the poem continues on page 19. This is a pretty lengthy one. And also, your task is on page 20. So if we go to page 20, so I am on page 20 right now. On page 20, you will see our directions, and we are going to go over the directions before we read this poem. So our directions say, again, we are on lessons 11 through 14, and this is a close read. We know what a close read is. We've been doing this since the beginning of the school year. So when I read closely, I, number 1, read with my pencil in hand, marking up the text as I go. So I need to see marks on your papers, friends. You can't just turn in the poem to me with no marks on it. Mark it up. Use sticky notes. I know a lot of you have been showing me you have sticky notes handy. Have them handy so that you can write your notes on there. There is a little space on the side of this poem. You can use that space too. Read the text multiple times, each time with a new purpose. So every time you read, you're looking for something new. So if the first time you read it, you were looking for rhyming words, the second time you want to focus on something else. Maybe you want to start focusing on the message or the theme of the poem. And lastly, you need to read, write, and talk about the text a lot. So if you notice, this is lessons 11 through 14, which means we're going to spend a little bit of time on this poem. Phase 1, I'm going to go over that quickly too because phase 1 will help you to identify things in your first read through or second or third read through of this poem. So phase 1, something that we always do, stop and jot. So if you need to make yourself some reminders, this is something that we always do in class. We stop and jot. We know how to stop and jot. Let me focus this for us, sorry. There we go. So jot down on your unfamiliar words or phrases from the poem and define them using a dictionary or context clues background knowledge. It says teacher may determine to divvy up the poem into smaller chunks. I'm going to have you just read the entire poem for now, and you can pick out as many words or phrases as you'd like. If you only pick out a few, that's fine, but try to pull out as much as you can. So this is going to be one of your tasks today to complete phase 1. Again, phase 1 is to closely read that poem and stop and jot some words or phrases, and then go back and look up those definitions. And I'm also going to have you do part 2 of phase 1. So if you turn your page to page 21, you will see the top of this page says part 2 of phase 1. Phase 1 is the close reading. So again, what is happening in the poem, Casey at Bat? Some of your key ideas you can list below here. So tell me what's happening. You don't have to write incomplete sentences. We can jot things down. We can use bullets. Give me at least 3 to 4 bullets of what is happening in this poem. What is the key ideas? So those are your 2 tasks for today. We are not moving on. So we'll go back a little bit. We are starting at page 18. Where the poem begins, and you are going on to page 21. So 18 through 21 are your pages for today. So while we are here, I'm going to read the poem for you, and you are going to reread the poem multiple times when we are through, and you're going to pick out key ideas. You're going to mark it up, label it, do whatever you need to better understand. So let's get this over here. All right. Okay, so again, this poem is titled Casey at the Bat by Ernest Lawrence Thayer. The outlook wasn't brilliant for the Mudville Nine that day. The score stood 4-2, with but 1 inning more to play. And then, when Cooney died at first, and Barrows did the same, a sickly silence fell upon the patrons of the game. A straggling few got up to go in deep despair. The rest clung to that hope which springs eternal in the human breast. They thought if only Casey could get but a whack at that, we'd put up even money now with Casey at the bat. But Flynn preceded Casey, as did also Jimmy Blake, and the former was a Lulu, and the latter was a cake. So upon that stricken multitude grim melancholy sat, for there seemed but little chance of Casey's getting to the bat. Let's move this up. Sorry. But Flynn let drive a single to the woodman of all, and Blake the much despised tore the cover off the ball. And when the dust had lifted and the men saw what had occurred, there was Jimmy safe at second and Flynn a hugging third. Then from 5,000 throats and more there rose a lusty yell. It rumbled through the valley, it rattled in the dell. It knocked upon the mountain and recoiled upon the flat, for Casey, mighty Casey, was advancing to the bat. There was ease in Casey's manner, and he stepped into his place. There was pride in Casey's bearing, and a smile on Casey's face. And when responding to the cheers, he lightly doffed his hat, no stranger in the crowd could doubt 'twas Casey at the bat. Trying to get this up here. Last little stanza here on the first page. 10,000 eyes were on him as he rubbed his hands with dirt. 5,000 tons applauded when he wiped them on his shirt. Then while the writhing pitcher ground the ball into his hip, defiance gleamed in Casey's eye, a sneer curled Casey's lip. Turn your pages, friends. So we are on to page 19. And now the leather-covered sphere came hurting through the air, and Casey stood a-watching in haunting grandeur there. Close by the sturdy batsman, the ball in heated speed. "That ain't my style," said Casey. "Strike one," the umpire said. From the benches black with people there went up a muffled roar, like the beating of the storm waves on a stern and distant shore. "Kill him! Kill the umpire!" shouted someone on the stand, and it's likely they'd killed him had not Casey raised his hand. With a smile of Christian charity great, Casey's visage shone. He stilled the rising tumult, he bade the game go on. He signaled to the pitcher, and once more the sphere flew, but Casey still ignored it, and the umpire said, "Strike two!" "Fraud!" cried the maddened thousands, and echo answered fraud. But one scornful look from Casey, and the audience was awed. They saw his face grow stern and cold, they saw his muscles strain, and they knew that Casey wouldn't let the ball go by again. The sneer is gone from Casey's lip, his teeth are clenched in hate. He pounds with cruel violence his bat upon the plate. And now the pitcher holds the ball, and now he lets it go. And now the air is shattered by the force of Casey's blow. Oh, somewhere in this favored land, the sun is shining bright. The band is playing somewhere, and somewhere hearts are light. And somewhere men are laughing, and somewhere children shout. But there is no joy in Mudville. Mighty Casey has struck out. All right, friends, so again, your task for today is to complete page 18 through 21. If you have any questions, please re-watch this video. I know that was a lot of information, but I wanted to get everything in for this. So you are completing phase 1, part 1, and part 2. If you guys have any questions, again, don't hesitate to reach out. I will talk to you guys all soon. Have a wonderful day.